Ben Shapiro, the feminist destroyer, the demigod who uses facts and logic to absolutely destroy his opponent's stupid SJW feminist libtard arguments. One of Ben's most famous clips is where Ben Shapiro destroys transgenderism and pro-abortion arguments. This clip is full of misinformation and lies, and today I will be debunking that. First off, I want to make it clear. I will not be in any way debunking his arguments against abortion. This is not what I will be debunking, so please do not comment about it. Okay, now that that's all out of the way, let's get right into the first clip.
So, how do you say that some people don't have privilege when you basically just said that trans people aren't valid? They're not a thing. They're just girls pretending to be boys or boys pretending to be girls.
Okay.
Like, okay.
Oh, someone's excited. Okay.
Sex is biological, but gender is a completely different thing.
No, gender is not disconnected from sex.
Okay, so right off the bat, Ben makes a pretty misleading statement when he says that gender is not disconnected from sex. While this may be technically true, it is still misleading as Ben makes it seem like gender and sex are the same thing, which by definition they are not.
Okay, no, it is not in the mind. Okay, you're not a man if you think you're a man. And I didn't say pretending, or if I did, I shouldn't have said pretending. Let me amend.
You said playing.
Okay, I said a boy who thinks he's a girl. That's the usual phraseology I use. Not playing. I usually say a boy who thinks he's a girl or a girl who thinks he's a boy, which is technically what we're talking about here. As far as the actual psychological issues at play, it used to be called gender dysphoria or gender identity disorder. Now they call it gender dysphoria. The idea that sex or gender are malleable is not true.
Okay, so here we have Ben's first blatant lie. He claims that gender is not in the mind. This is false, as by definition, gender means either of two sexes, male and female, especially when considered the social and cultural differences, rather than biological ones. Gender is therefore entirely in the mind because gender is just the social and cultural differences displayed by the two sexes, which all takes place in the mind. Ben also stupidly says that gender and sex are not malleable. This is a stupid point, as gender and sex are by definition two very different things. This is actually a reoccurring theme as Ben constantly conflates these two terms. This is wrong as by definition gender refers to the social and cultural differences displayed by the two sexes. This is fully malleable as the social and cultural differences displayed are not locked in place by our biological sexes.
Okay, and I'm not denying your humanity if you're a transgender person. I am saying that you are not the sex to which you claim to be. You're still a human being, and you're a human being with an issue that I wish you Godspeed in dealing with in whatever way you see fit. But if you are going to dictate to me that I'm supposed to pretend that men are women and women are men, no. My answer is no. I'm not going to modify basic biology because it threatens your subjective sense of what you are.
Ooh, Ben certainly stated the obvious here. He said that transgender people are not the sex that they claim to be. Wow, stunning revelations by Ben. It's almost as if that's the literal definition of transgender. Of course trans people are not biologically the opposite sex they are born with. But they are, by definition, the opposite gender, because gender refers to the characteristics attributed to a certain sex, hence the term transgender. Ben also says that people are making him pretend that men and women are men. This is clearly basic manners and politeness, as these people are just wanting to be called according to the gender which they identify with. This is important as these people do not want the expectations and stereotypes attributed to the different genders to be placed upon themselves, as it does not match their identity. Ben also says that he's not going to modify basic biology because it threatens your subjective sense of what you are. No one is asking you to modify basic biology here, Ben. Using pronouns such as he or she do not have to refer to sex. These terms, he and she, can and often do refer to a person's gender. This is because gender affects what we do much more than biological sex affects what we do, outside of a few very specific situations. So no, Ben, people aren't asking you to modify your basic biology, and are instead asking you to refer them with the pronouns that match those people's gender identity.
Okay, but you're still saying these kids should not be accepted because they don't really fit in either place? They can't just
I'm saying that the Boy Scouts have a standard. You must be a biological boy to be a Boy Scout. You have to be a boy to be a Boy Scout.
Where's that written though?
In the name Boy Scouts.
Wow, Ben Shapiro with a heavy hitter, the feminist destroying fact that Boy Scouts are called Boy Scouts. What he does here is he slips in that you have to be a biological boy to join the Boy Scouts. The person asking the question rightfully calls him up on this, and asks where it is written. And Ben, the genius, the 2000 IQ mega genius that he is, says, in the name Boy Scouts. See, Ben didn't really answer the question here, as the term boy can either refer to biological young male or a young person whose gender aligns with society's perception of what a boy is. Hence the term Boy Scouts could just mean either of these things. Ben actually kind of lies here when he says that you must be a biological boy to join the Boy Scouts. This is not true, as before Ben's video took place, a change was made in the Boy Scouts which actually allowed biological females to join the Boy Scouts. So basically, Ben Shapiro is wrong.
And if I call you a moose, are you suddenly a moose? Okay, if I redefine our terms. No, yes, that's right. Men and women are a completely different thing. This is true. Have you ever met a man or a woman? They're completely different.
Completely different thing. You can't just say you're a cat. It's not a thing. It's genders. It's not saying you're.
Okay, why is that? I don't understand. Why? Okay, let me ask you this. Okay, I won't ask you how old. I will ask you how old you are. Okay, because you're young enough that it's probably not insulting to ask you. So.
I'm 22, so I'm probably young and naive, right?
No. Why aren't you 60? Why aren't you 60?
Because it.
And why can't you identify as 60? What is the problem with you identifying as 60?
Alright, so here Ben has the genius talking point where he says, why aren't you a moose? Why aren't you 60? He clearly conflates species with gender. To clarify, by definition, you cannot change your species, as species refers to the massive range of features that you cannot physically change, and age refers to the physical amount of years you have been alive. Again, something that you cannot change. On the other hand, gender can be changed, as by definition, it's either of two sexes, male and female, especially when considered with the social and cultural differences, rather than biological ones. This is something that you can clearly change, as it is just in reference to how you act and present yourself. This isn't even comparable to species or age.
It's not the same as gender. You can't just.
You're right. Age is significantly less important than gender. You can't magically change your gender. You can't magically change your sex. You can't magically change your age.
Whoa, Ben really got him on this one. 2 out of 3 statements correct. A new record for Ben over here. So when Ben says you magically can't change your gender, he is wrong. I think I've already explained this like twice now, so I won't even bother going into it again. He also states this blatant lie with 2 other obvious facts. He states that you magically can't change your sex and that you magically can't change your age. He does this in order to make his audience feel as though those things are the same, or at least equivalent, which they aren't.
The idea behind the transgender movement as a civil rights movement is the idea that all of their problems would just go away if I would pretend that they were the sex to which they claim membership. That's nonsense.
No, Ben, it's not nonsense. According to a study published in 2014 by the Williams Institute, said that trans people at work who were referred to by the wrong pronoun repeatedly and on purpose were 16% more likely to commit suicide. So while Ben's statement is technically true when saying that all their problems wouldn't go away, it is misleading, as misgendering does have a significant effect on these people's mental health.
Society
Do you
treats
think it could be because of they're bullied at school?
No, I don't think that. I do not think that the discrepancy. I do not think the discrepancy. First of all, I'm against bullying of any sort. Okay, the idea that somebody would beat somebody up is terrible. Okay, as somebody who's viciously bullied in high school, I'm not a fan of bullying. But the idea that the normal suicide rate across the United States is 4%. The suicide rate in the transgender community is 40%. The idea that 36% more transgender people are committing suicide because people are mean to them is ridiculous. It's not true, and it's not backed by any science that anyone can cite.
Okay, everyone, strap yourself in for some facts and logic. Ben stupidly says that the suicide rate is not caused due to people being mean to them. Okay, then. Well, what about the fact that trans people who were denied access to the proper bathroom were 19% more likely to commit suicide? And those who were bullied, 10% more likely to commit suicide. Those who were made homeless because of discrimination were 29% more likely to commit suicide. Those who were evicted for the same reason, 23% more likely. Ones who were denied housing, 22% more likely. Those who faced disrespect or discrimination by healthcare providers or doctors were 16% more likely to commit suicide. When trans people are refused medical care because they're transgender, they're 20% more likely. Those whose families did not speak with them, 17% more likely. Trans people who were disrespected or harassed by police officers were 20% more likely. Those who did not feel comfortable getting help from the police, 12% more likely. I could go on, but the point is that discrimination, or as Ben puts it, just being mean, contributes to the massive suicide rates found amongst the trans community. Helping to reduce the hate displayed towards trans people will eliminate a large portion of the suicide rates seen amongst trans people. So when Ben says these idiotic claims, he contributes to the suicide of thousands of trans people by making people think that just being mean to trans people does not affect suicide rates, when it is fact that it does.